the fog hangs thick over the Argonne Forest. On the morning of September 27, 1918, American forces have just launched the largest offensive in United States military history. Nearly 1.2 million doughboys are pushing against German defensive lines that have held for 4 brutal years. But something is going wrong. In the communication trench near Chepi, Sergeant Fred Lloyd crouches beside his exhausted squad. They've been fighting for 3 days straight. Artillery pounds the earth around them. Machine gun fire rays overhead in murderous arcs. His men are down to 18 rounds of rifle ammunition each. The German counterattack is coming at dawn and intelligence reports suggest a battalion-strength force. Over 200 enemy soldiers is massing to retake this strategic river crossing. Lloyd clutches his Winchester Model 1897 pump-action shotgun. His squad mates have been calling it Grandpa's duck gun since he picked it up from the company armor. Compared to their bolt-action Springfield rifles, the stubby 12-gauge shotgun looks ridiculous, antiquated, some frontier relic that belongs in a barn, not on a modern battlefield dominated by machine guns and poison gas. What the Germans don't know is that this Grandpa's shotgun is about to change warfare forever. What Lloyd doesn't know is that in exactly 17 hours, the German High Command will file a formal diplomatic protest demanding these weapons be banned under international law. They will threaten to execute any American soldier captured with one, and they'll call it the most inhumane weapon ever deployed in combat. Right now, Lloyd checks his ammunition pouches. 6 shells in the gun, 18 more in his belt. Each shell contains 9.33 caliber lead pellets. At close range, it's the equivalent of firing 9 simultaneous rifle shots. But as dawn breaks and the sound of hundreds of German boots begins echoing through the fog, Lloyd faces a terrifying calculation. 24 shells against 200 men. The mathematics of survival don't look good. His men look at him with hollow eyes. They've seen the casualty reports. In this sector, American forces are suffering 70% casualties in the first wave. Machine guns cut down entire companies before they advance 50 yards. One officer wrote home, "We're not fighting men anymore. We're feeding them into a meat grinder." Lloyd pumps his shotgun once. The sharp, of the action chambering a shell cuts through the artillery thunder. The bridge behind them is the only route forward for 3,000 American troops waiting to exploit the breakthrough. If it falls, the offensive stalls. Men die in the open, pinned by crossfire. What happens next will become legend. To understand how a shotgun became the most feared weapon in the trenches, we need to go back 16 years. The year is 1902. The Philippine-American War is dragging into its bloody 3rd year. American forces are fighting a brutal counterinsurgency against Mororo warriors, fierce tribesmen who launch suicidal charges with bladed weapons. The problem, the standard issue .38 caliber revolver doesn't have enough stopping power. Soldiers watch in horror as attackers absorb multiple shots and keep coming. Captain John J. Passing witnesses one particularly brutal engagement. A Mororo swordsman hit 3 times in the chest crosses 50 yards and kills 2 American soldiers before collapsing. Passing writes in his report, "We need something with immediate, devastating close-range effect." Then he sees something remarkable. A civilian contractor defending a supply depot with a Winchester 1897 pump-action shotgun cuts down 3 charging warriors with 3 shots. The buckshot literally stops them in their tracks. Passing makes a note. He'll remember this. Fast forward to 1917. Now, General Passing commands the American Expeditionary Forces preparing to deploy to France. The reports from the Western Front are nightmarish. Trench warfare has devolved into close-quarters horror. Men fight with clubs, knives, and sharpened shovels in muddy trenches barely wider than a coffin. Machine guns dominate open ground. Artillery turns the landscape into a moonscape. The casualty numbers are staggering. At the Battle of the Somme in 1916, British forces suffered 57 to 570 casualties on the first day alone. The French lost 27,000 men in a single afternoon at Verdun. By 1918, European armies have bled white. They've lost an entire generation trying to crack defensive positions that favor the defender at a rate of 10 to 1. Every nation has tried to solve the trench warfare problem. The Germans deploy flamethrowers and poison gas. The British invent tanks. The French perfect the creeping barrage. Nothing works. The trenches swallow armies whole and give nothing back but corpses. The experts all agree. Modern warfare requires modern weapons. Artillery, machine guns, rifles with 1,000 range. Some general staff officers propose medieval pikes would be more effective in trenches than rifles. The consensus is clear. There's no room for old-fashioned weapons in this industrial-scale slaughter. But Pissing remembers the Philippines. He remembers what close-range buckshot can do. He makes a controversial request to the U.S. Ordnance Department. Send shotguns. The reaction is immediate and hostile. One colonel writes, "Shotguns are sporting weapons, not military arms. This is a ridiculous waste of resources." Another memo circulates, calling the idea dangerously anachronistic. The Ordnance Department nearly rejects the request entirely. The stakes couldn't be higher. American forces are arriving at a rate of 10,000 men per day by mid-1918. But they're green troops facing the most experienced battle-hardened army in the world. German stormtroopers have perfected infiltration tactics that can overrun positions in minutes. Their machine gunners are brutally efficient. American casualties in early engagements are catastrophic. Some units lose 50% strength in the first contact. The British and French allies are polite but skeptical about American combat effectiveness. One British general quips, "The Yanks are brave, but enthusiasm doesn't stop bullets." If American forces can't crack the German defensive lines, the war will drag into 1919, 1920, maybe longer. The Allies are running out of men. France has conscripted boys as young as 15. Britain is scraping the bottom of the manpower barrel. The German spring offensive nearly won the war in March 1918. Everything depends on the American breakthrough. And Pissing is betting part of that breakthrough on a weapon that looks like it belongs in a duck blind, not on the most modern mechanized battlefield in human history. The experts think he's lost his mind. They're about to be proven catastrophically wrong. Fred Lloyd isn't supposed to be here. Born in Iowa in 1894, he's the son of a railroad worker. He has an 8th grade education. Before the war, he worked as a farmhand and part-time hunting guide. He's never been more than 50 m from his hometown. He has 0 credentials that would qualify him for military leadership. No college education, no family military tradition, just a farm kid who could shoot. When he enlists in January 1918, he tells the recruiter he's pretty good with a shotgun. The recruiter barely looks up. "Son, we're sending you to fight Germans, not hunt ducks." Lloyd ships to France in June 1918 with the 26th Infantry Regiment. The veterans immediately mark him as green. He doesn't know how to properly clean his rifle. He gets lost in the trench system. During his first artillery barrage, he freezes up completely. One sergeant tells him bluntly, "Boys like you last about 3 days over the top." But Lloyd notices something the veterans have stopped seeing. The trenches are tight, claustrophobic spaces. The distances in trench raids measure in yards, not hundreds of yards. When German stormtroopers attack, they come fast and close. By the time you work the bolt on a Springfield rifle between shots, they've closed the distance. He watches a trench raid go bad in August. German soldiers swarm into the American line. The defenders fire once, twice, then resort to bayonets and hand-to-hand fighting. 12 Americans die in brutal close combat. 12 men who couldn't reload fast enough. Lloyd thinks, this isn't rifle fighting. This is shotgun range. He approaches his company commander, Captain James Morrison, with an unusual request. "Sir, I'd like to draw a trench gun from the army." Morrison looks at him like he's insane. "Lloyd, you understand we're fighting the German army, not hunting rabbits." "Yes, sir. But I think that's your problem, Private." "You think? Let me give you some free advice. Your job is to follow orders, not think." "Lloyd won't let it go, sir. With respect, in the trenches, we're fighting at 30 yards or less. A Springfield rifle fires 1 round, and you work the bolt. A trench gun fires 6 rounds as fast as you can pump. That's 6 times the firepower." Morrison is about to dismiss him when a crusty first sergeant speaks up. "Captain, the kid's not wrong about the math. We lost good men last week because they couldn't reload fast enough." Morrison stares at Lloyd for a long moment. This farm kid with mud on his uniform and no combat decorations has just challenged the way the entire army fights. Finally, Morrison nods. "Fine. Take one of the Winchester shotguns. But Lloyd, first time you freeze up or that thing jams, I'm taking it away and you're back on rifle duty." Lloyd signs for a Winchester Model 1897 on September 14, 1918. The armorer tells him, "You're the 5th man to request one of these. The other 4 are all dead." Lloyd takes the shotgun anyway. What he doesn't know is that he's just picked up a weapon that will literally terrify the German army into demanding it be outlawed as a war crime. The Winchester Model 1897 looks deceptively simple. It's just a pump-action shotgun, the kind American farmers have been using for deer hunting for 20 years, but the military version has modifications that transform it into something else entirely. First, The barrel is cut to 20 in, short enough to maneuver in the tight confines of a trench. Second, a perforated metal heat shield covers the barrel. Why? Because when you fire a shotgun repeatedly in combat, the barrel gets scorching hot. Third, there's a bayonet lug. You can fix a 17 inches knife to the front. But the real secret, the feature that will make this weapon legendary, is something most soldiers don't even know about. The Model 1897 has no trigger disconnector. In a normal shotgun, you must release the trigger after each shot before you can fire again. But in the 1897, if you hold the trigger down and just pump the action, it fires automatically. It's called slam fire. A trained shooter can empty all 6 shells in under 2 seconds. That's 6 blasts of 9 buckshot pellets each. 54 projectiles in 2 seconds. At close range, it's like facing a machine gun loaded with 33 caliber bullets. Lloyd discovers slam fire by accident. During a practice session in a rear area trench, he holds the trigger down while pumping. Bam, 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 bam. 4 rounds go off in a blur. The other soldiers stare in shock. One of them mutters, "Jesus Christ," but there's a problem. The gun violently overheats. After 10 rounds, Lloyd can't touch the barrel, even through heavy gloves. The military solution, that perforated heat shield. It allows air circulation while protecting the shooter's hand. Lloyd practices obsessively. He drills the reloading sequence until he can do it in complete darkness. 6 shells in the magazine tube. When the gun runs dry, thumb 6 more shells in one at a time while moving while diving for cover while someone is shooting at you. He experiments with different types of shells. The standard load is double-lock buckshot 933 caliber pellets, but some shells carry number 4 Buck 27 smaller pellets. Lloyd discovers the pattern. At 15 yards, the buckshot spreads to a 3 FFT diameter. Anything inside that cone is hit by multiple projectiles. Other soldiers start to notice. One of his squad mates, Private Joseph Hernandez, asks to see the shotgun. Lloyd lets him try a few practice rounds. Hernandez hands it back, visibly shaken. "Lloyd, that's not a weapon. That's a war crime waiting to happen." He's more right than he knows. On September 19, 1918, 8 days before Lloyd's moment of truth, the German government files a formal diplomatic protest through neutral Switzerland. The language is stark. The German government protests against the use of shotguns by the American army and calls attention to the fact that according to the law of war, every U.S. past prisoner of war found to have in his possession such guns or ammunition belonging thereto forfeits his life. They're threatening to execute American prisoners caught with shotguns. The reason? Article 23E of the HEG Convention prohibits weapons calculated to cause unnecessary suffering. General Pershing's response is equally blunt. Any German soldier caught with a flamethrower or saw-backed bayonet will be executed immediately. Neither side follows through on the threats, but the message is clear. The Germans are terrified of this weapon. Lloyd doesn't know any of this. He's too busy preparing for the assault on September 27. He's about to show them exactly why they should be afraid. The planning meeting for the Meuse-Argonne offensive takes place on September 24, 1918. General Pershing's staff gathers in a farmhouse 12m behind the lines. The room is crowded with colonels and majors, all West Point graduates, all experienced officers. Captain Morrison presents his company's battle plan. When he mentions that some soldiers will carry trench guns instead of rifles, the room erupts. Colonel Richard Prescott, a 40-year Army veteran, cuts him off. That's unacceptable. Shotguns are not standard-issue weapons. Morrison tries to explain. "Sir, in close-quarters trench fighting, I don't care about your theories, Captain. We have established doctrine for offensive operations. That doctrine calls for rifle-armed infantry supported by machine guns and artillery. Shotguns are not part of the equation." Another officer chimes in. "The Germans are already threatening to execute prisoners with these weapons. Using them puts our men at risk." Morrison stands his ground. "With respect, Colonel, we've tested the trench gun in combat. The results speak for themselves." "What results?" Prescott demands. "Show me the after-action reports. Show me the data." Morrison produces a folder. In the past 3 weeks, men armed with trench guns and close-quarters engagements have achieved a 4-to-1 kill ratio compared to rifle-armed soldiers. They suffer 40% fewer casualties in trench-clearing operations. The room goes silent. Another officer, Major William Bradford, leans forward. 4-to-1. That can't be accurate." "It is, sir. We've documented 23 separate engagements. The pattern is consistent. The rate of fire and the spread pattern at close range give our men a significant advantage. Colonel Prescott isn't convinced. Or your men are just getting lucky. This is anecdotal evidence at best. The German army is the most professional military force in the world. They've been fighting for 4 years. You think we're going to win this war with duck hunting guns? Morrison refuses to back down. Sir, I think we're going to win this war by using every advantage we have. The trench gun is one of those advantages. The argument escalates. Officers cite regulations, doctrine, training manuals. Someone mentions that no European army uses shotguns. Another points out that ammunition supply for non-standard weapons complicates logistics. Finally, General Charles Summerall, the V Corps commander, intervenes. He's been sitting quietly in the corner, listening. Gentlemen, he says, his voice cutting through the argument like a knife. Let me make this simple. We're about to send 600,000 men against the most fortified defensive position in the history of warfare. German casualties for defensive actions favor the defender at approximately 8-1. That means for every German we kill, we lose 8 men. Those are unacceptable numbers. He stands, walks to the map table. Captain Morrison's data shows a 4-1 ratio in favor of trench gun operators. I don't care if that makes the Germans uncomfortable. I don't care if it violates someone's sense of how warfare should look. What I care about is bringing my men home alive. He turns to Colonel Prescott. Dick, I respect your experience, but this isn't 1898. This isn't even 1914. Warfare has changed. We need to change with it. Then he looks at Morrison. Captain, how many trench guns can you field? We have 12 in the company army, sir. That's not enough. I want 50 distributed to your battalion. Pull them from Corps Reserve if you have to, and I want your best men carrying them. Yes, sir. Summerall addresses the room. Let me be crystal clear. Any officer who interferes with the distribution or use of trench guns will answer to me personally. We're trying to win a war, not a debate about military tradition. Are we understood? A chorus of yes, sir, echoes around the room. After the meeting breaks up, Morrison finds Sergeant Lloyd in the company area. Lloyd, the general just authorized expanded use of the trench gun. I need you to train 11 more men in the next 48 hours. Lloyd nods. I can do that, sir, but I have a request. What is it? When we hit the German lines, I want to be the first man through the breach. Morrison studies him carefully. This kid who showed up 6 months ago looking like he'd never held a rifle, who the veteran said wouldn't last 3 days, who requested a weapon everyone thought was ridiculous. Lloyd, you understand what you're volunteering for. First man through takes the highest casualties. Yes, sir. But somebody has to show them it works. Morrison extends his hand. Then it's yours, Sergeant. Sir, I'm still a private. Not anymore. As of right now, you're a sergeant. Now go teach those men how to shoot. For the first time since arriving in France, Fred Lloyd allows himself a small smile. 3 days later, he'll prove that General Summerall made the right call. September 27, 1918. Here over for 5 hours. The fog is so thick that Lloyd can't see more than 10 feet. That's actually good. It means the German machine gunners can't see either. His company has punched through the first German trench line. Now they're holding a stone bridge over a small stream. Behind them, 3 battalions wait for the signal to exploit the breakthrough. The bridge is the only crossing point for miles. German engineers collapse the others during the retreat. Then a runner from battalion arrives with bad news. German counterattack forming up. Estimated strength 2 companies, maybe more. They're going to try to retake the bridge. Captain Morrison makes the tactical calculation. If he pulls everyone back to defend the bridge, they lose the forward positions. If he keeps everyone forward, the Germans can flank them and cut off the retreat. He needs someone to hold the bridge. Hold it long enough for the rest of the company to consolidate their position. He finds Lloyd checking his ammunition. Sergeant, I need you to take your squad and hold that bridge. We're expecting a major German assault in the next hour. How long do you need, sir? 2 hours minimum. Can you do it? Lloyd looks at his 12-man squad. They're exhausted. They've been fighting for 3 days. Half of them are wounded, but they all have trench guns now. We'll hold, sir. Lloyd positions his men in a defensive half-circle on the American side of the bridge. The bridge itself is maybe 30 yards long, 15 feet wide. Stone walls on both sides, about 4 feet high. It's a natural choke point, perfect shotgun range. He gives his men their orders. Don't fire until they're on the bridge. Don't waste ammunition on targets you can't hit. Aim for center mass. When your gun runs empty, reload behind cover. Questions? Private Hernandez speaks up. Sarge, what if there's too many of them? Lloyd doesn't sugarcoat it. Then we slow them down as long as we can, and we die like soldiers. At 0530 hours, they hear it. Hundreds of boots on cobblestones. German voices calling out commands. The fog distorts the sound. Makes it seem like they're everywhere. Lloyd whispers to his men, hold your fire. Let them commit to the bridge. Shapes emerge from the fog. German soldiers in Feldgrau uniforms. They're moving in a column formation, the only way to cross the narrow bridge. Lloyd counts quickly, 15, 20, 30 men visible, more behind them in the fog. When the lead German soldiers reach the center of the bridge, Lloyd stands up and opens fire. The Winchester roars, bam. He pumps, bam, pumps, bam. The slam fire technique is practiced for weeks becomes automatic. 6 rounds in 3 seconds. The effect is catastrophic. At 30 yards, each buckshot shell spreads to cover a 3-foot circle. 9.33 caliber pellets, hitting multiple targets. The lead German soldiers go down in a heap. Men behind them trip over the bodies. His squad opens up in sequence. 12 shotguns firing in controlled bursts. The narrow bridge becomes a killing ground. Germans can't spread out, can't take cover, can only advance through a wall of buckshot or retreat. A German officer tries to rally his men, screaming orders. Lloyd fires twice. The officer goes down. The Germans pull back into the fog. Lloyd and his men reload. 6 shells per gun. Thumb them into the magazine tube one at a time. His hands are shaking from adrenaline. Count off, he shouts. All 12 men respond. No casualties yet. They'll try again. Lloyd says, be ready. 5 minutes later, they do. This time, the Germans try suppressing fire first. Rifle bullets crack overhead. Machine gun fire raz defensive position. Lloyd's men hug the dirt. Then the assault comes. More Germans this time. Maybe 50 men trying to cross. Lloyd waits until they are committed. Then now 12 shotguns rise above the stone wall and fire in unison. It sounds like a single massive explosion. The front rank of Germans disintegrates. Men fall screaming. The bridge becomes slippery with blood. The Germans retreat again. Third assault comes at 6 hours. They're trying a new tactic, throwing grenades first, then charging through the smoke. Lloyd watches 4 German stick grenades arc through the fog and land behind their position. Grenades, he shouts. His men hit the dirt. The explosions shower them with dirt and stone fragments. Before the smoke clears, Germans rush the bridge. They're betting the Americans are stunned, disorganized. They're wrong. Lloyd rises to one knee and starts firing. His shotgun runs dry. He doesn't even think, just thumbs 6 new shells in while counting the seconds. 3 seconds to reload. Back in the fight. One German soldier makes it within 10 yards. Lloyd shoots him twice. The man goes down 5 feet from Lloyd's position. By 0700 hours, the bridge approach is carpeted with German dead and wounded. Lloyd's squad has fired more than 400 shells. 3 of his men are wounded, including Hernandez, who took a rifle bullet through the shoulder, but they are still holding. At 0730 hours, the German attacks stop. The fog begins to lift. Lloyd can see now. He's facing the remnants of 2 German companies, maybe 200 men initially, perhaps 100 still effective. The bodies on and around the bridge tell the story. Captain Morrison arrives with reinforcements at 0800 hours. He stares at the carnage in disbelief. Lloyd, what the hell happened here? We held, sir. Morrison walks onto the bridge, stepping over German bodies. He counts. 47 dead on the bridge alone. More in the approaches. Sergeant, did you do this with just 12 men? Yes, sir. The trench guns worked. Later that day, Morrison files his after-action report. He estimates Lloyd's squad killed or wounded, between 80 and 90 German soldiers. They did it with 0 friendly KIA and only 3 wounded. The kill ratio approximately 7 to 1 in favor of the defenders. The report reaches General Summerall that evening. He reads it twice, then says to his aide, make sure this gets to pissing. He needs to see what his shotguns can do. 3 weeks later, the war ends. But Fred Lloyd's fight at the bridge doesn't end there. The story spreads through the American expeditionary forces like wildfire. Other units request trench guns. The Germans, already reeling from the collapse of their defensive lines, file additional protests. Their soldiers begin surrendering rather than face American troops armed with shotguns. A captured German soldier interrogated in October 1918 tells his captors, "We were not afraid of your rifles. We were not afraid of your machine guns, but those damn shotguns. You cannot fight against that. It is like facing the devil himself." The mathematics of survival had shifted. And Fred Lloyd, the farm kid with an 8th grade education who didn't know anything about warfare, had just helped prove that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The Meuse-Argonne offensive ends on November 11, 1918. The armistice is signed. The Great War is over. By war's end, the U.S. military has deployed approximately 35,000 Winchester and Remington trench shotguns to France. They account for less than 1% of American weapons, but their psychological impact is disproportionate. German prisoners consistently cite the shotgun as one of the most feared weapons they faced. Final statistics tell the story. Units equipped with trench guns in close quarters. Combat averaged 3.5 to 1 kill ratios. 3.5 Germans killed for every American casualty. By comparison, rifle-armed units in similar terrain averaged 1.2 to 1 ratios. In defensive positions like Lloyd's Bridge fight, the numbers were even more stark. Well-positioned shotgun operators could achieve 6 to 1 or even 8 to 1 ratios against attacking forces. Fred Lloyd returns home to Iowa in February 1919. He receives the Distinguished Service Cross for his actions, America's second highest Valor Award. The ceremony is brief. Lloyd says only, "I did what needed doing." He never speaks publicly about the war, never writes a memoir, never cashes in on his fame. When reporters ask about the bridge, he deflects. "A lot of good men fought that day. I just happened to be the one holding the gun." In 1924, a veteran from his company tracks him down. The man, whose name we don't know, writes Lloyd a simple letter. "Because of you, we came home. My children have a father because you held that bridge. I wanted you to know that." Lloyd keeps the letter, but tells no one about it. The Winchester Model 1897 continues in U.S. military service for 8 more decades. American Marines carry them in World War II during Pacific Island fighting. They clear Japanese bunkers in Uema and Okinawa. U.S. troops use them in Korea, Vietnam, and even the First Gulf War. The last military Model 1897s aren't retired until 1999, 81 years after the armistice. Modern combat shotguns, the Mossberg 590, the Remington 870, the Benelli M4 are all descendants of Lloyd's grandpa's duck gun. U.S. Special Operations Forces use breaching shotguns to blow door hinges. U.S. Marines teach shotgun tactics at Camp Leon. The weapon Lloyd superiors called ridiculous is now standard equipment. In 2018, the German government, now a NATO ally, formally acknowledged the historical controversy around trench shotguns. A German Defense Ministry spokesperson said, "The diplomatic protest of 1918 reflected the terror and desperation of that war. The shotgun was effective because it fundamentally changed the dynamics of trench combat." Fred Lloyd dies in 1967 at age 73. His obituary in the local Iowa newspaper is 4 paragraphs long. It mentions he was a veteran. It doesn't mention the bridge. At his funeral, 6 elderly men show up wearing their old army uniforms. They are members of his original squad. They've come from across the country. One of them tells Lloyd's son, "Your father saved all of us that day. He taught us that sometimes the old ways, the simple ways are the right ways. The moral lesson isn't complicated. Sometimes the experts are wrong. Sometimes courage and innovation matter more than credentials and tradition. Sometimes a farm kid with a shotgun can change the course of history. And sometimes when everyone tells you something can't be done, the correct response is to prove them wrong. Rest in peace, Sergeant Fred Lloyd. Your bridge held."